"I'm sorry, we have no availability tonight," the hostess said over the phone.
"But I'm making a reservation for Michelin-starred Chef Antonio," the caller insisted.
"One moment, please."
The hostess panicked and called owner Robert Delacroix. "Chef Antonio is coming tonight." Robert froze. He hadn't heard that name in 15 years. Welcome to Iron Will Stories. Before we begin this story, tell me in the comments which city you're watching from today, and if you believe stories like this need to be remembered, hit that subscribe button and help us keep these voices alive. Antonio Rossi, 22 years old, worked as a waiter at a small Italian restaurant in Paris. Le Petit Jardin was located in the Saint-Germain district, on a narrow street, catering mainly to tourists. The owner, Robert Delacroix, 45, was an arrogant and ruthless man. Antonio came from Calabria, in southern Italy. His family owned a small pizzeria, but Antonio had bigger dreams. He wanted to become the world's greatest chef. He'd come to Paris, learned the language, and started waiting tables to get his foot in the culinary world. Robert Delacroix never took him seriously. While Antonio served tables, he watched the kitchen, tried to talk to the chefs, and studied recipes in his spare time. But Robert saw this as not focusing on work. That night, the restaurant was busy. Saturday evening, all tables were full. Antonio was doing his best. As always, Antonio had taken a dish from the kitchen to the wrong table. It was a small mistake. These things happen. But Robert didn't miss the opportunity. "Antonio, come here!" he shouted loud enough for the entire restaurant to hear. Antonio approached. "Yes, Monsieur Delacroix?" "What is this?" Robert pointed at the plate. "Coq au vin, sir, for table 7. "Which table did you take it to?" Antonio's face flushed. "Table 5. I'm sorry." Robert began to laugh, a cruel, humiliating laugh. "Listen, everyone," he said, turning to the customers. "This boy wants to be a chef. He can't even deliver a plate to the right table, but he wants to be a chef." The restaurant fell silent. Customers looked at Antonio. Some smiled, others felt embarrassed. "Robert, please," Antonio whispered. "Please what?" Robert raised his voice. "How many times have I told you, you were born to be a waiter, you'll die as a waiter. Being a chef isn't for you. Understand that already." Antonio's eyes welled up, but he didn't cry. I can learn. The only thing you can learn is how to deliver plates to the right table." Robert laughed. "Look, Antonio, I'll do you a favor. Give up these ridiculous dreams. Being a chef isn't a profession at your level." At that moment, Chef Marcel emerged from the kitchen. Marcel was the restaurant's head chef with 25 years of experience. He'd never supported Antonio. As Antonio was leaving work that night, Robert stopped him. "Antonio, don't come tomorrow." "What?" "I'm terminating your employment. We don't need you anymore." Antonio was shocked. "But why? It was just one mistake." "Because you can't even be a proper waiter. You're useless at this job. Go find yourself another job, but nothing related to cooking. Don't ruin yourself." Antonio silently took off his apron and left it behind. As he walked out, Robert shouted after him, "And Antonio, don't try to find work in this industry again. I'll tell everyone what a fiasco you are." That night, Antonio realized he couldn't pay his rent. He had no savings. His family was far away. He was completely alone in Paris. But there was something inside him, anger and determination. The next day, he found a small kitchen in one of Paris's worst neighborhoods, a place where illegal immigrants worked, where no questions were asked. He worked 14 hours a day, not for money, but to learn. Old Chinese chef Wong trained him. "Being a chef is here," Wong said, pointing to his heart. "Not here," he added, pointing to his head. Antonio learned something new every day. Chinese cuisine, Vietnamese cuisine, Thai cuisine. Wong had a large network. Chefs from different restaurants would come and go. 2 years later, Antonio was a different person. He'd learned dozens of types of cuisine. But most importantly, he'd found his own style, a modern version of traditional Italian cooking. Wong gave him an opportunity. "Antonio, My friend is opening a restaurant in London. He's looking for a sous chef. I recommended you. Antonio went to London. He started working at a small restaurant. But now he wasn't just a worker. He was a creator. 6 months later, the restaurant owner fell ill. Antonio temporarily became head chef. That week, a local food blogger came. He tasted the menu Antonio had prepared and was amazed. The blog post changed Antonio's life. London's best hidden gem, young Italian chef, Antonio Rossi. Within 3 years, Antonio opened his own restaurant. Antonio's, small but elegant. The menu was limited, but every plate was perfect. He received his first Michelin star in 2012. That night, he cried. He remembered Robert's words from 5 years earlier. His second star came in 2015. He was now a European-recognized chef. His third star came in 2018. He entered the top 10 chefs in the world. But Antonio never forgot Robert Delacroix and the humiliation he suffered that night. In 2023, Antonio decided to open a new restaurant in Paris. But this wasn't just business. This was a revenge plan. First, he did research. Robert's restaurant was still open, but business wasn't going well. It had never earned a Michelin star. It couldn't move beyond traditional French cuisine. Antonio gave his PR specialist Sophie a special task. Sophie, you're going to make a
Sophie called Le Petit Jardin. Hostess Claire answered the phone. Le Petit Jardin, Claire speaking. Hello, I'd like to make a table reservation for tonight. I'm sorry, we have no availability tonight. But I'm making a reservation for 3 Michelin-starred chef Antonio Rossi. The tone changed. One moment, please. Claire immediately called Robert. Monsieur Delacroix, urgent. Chef Antonio Rossi is coming tonight. Robert nearly dropped the phone. Chef Antonio? That Chef Antonio? Yes, sir, the world-famous chef. Robert's heart raced. If Antonio ate at their restaurant, maybe they could get a Michelin star. Reserve the best table immediately and tell Marcel tonight will be perfect. That evening, Antonio came to Le Petit Jardin. After 15 years, he was entering through the same door. But now he was a world-famous chef. Robert rushed to greet him. He'd worn an expensive suit and his best cologne. Chef Antonio, welcome. What a great honor. Antonio smiled, calm, confident. Thank you. Robert led him to the best table. Chef Antonio, our restaurant is greatly honored to host a master like you. Antonio looked around. The restaurant was almost the same as 15 years ago. It just looked a bit older. Robert brought the menu. We've prepared our special menu for you tonight. Thank you, Antonio said. But first, I want to tell you something. Of course, chef, anything. Antonio stood up. His voice rose loud enough for the entire restaurant to hear. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Antonio Rossi. 15 years ago, I worked as a waiter in this restaurant. The restaurant fell silent. Robert's face changed. That night, I mixed up some plates, and what this man, Antonio pointed at Robert, said to me was. Antonio continued his speech. This man told me you were born a waiter, you'll die as a waiter. He said being a chef isn't a profession at your level. Robert's face turned crimson. Customers were looking at him. Then he fired me, just for mixing up one plate, and he shouted after me, "Don't try to find work in this industry again." Claire, the hostess, Marcel, the chef, all the staff had stopped. I'm here today because that man was wrong. I wasn't just a waiter. I was a future 3 Michelin-starred chef. Robert tried to recover. Antonio, you were young then, inexperienced. No, Robert, I had dreams then, and you tried to destroy them. Antonio pulled something from his pocket. The Michelin Guide, 2023 edition. In this book, my restaurant has 3 stars. Your restaurant, however, he flipped through the pages, doesn't exist. Heavy silence filled the restaurant. But I didn't come for revenge, Robert. Robert was surprised. What? I came for the next generation, Antonio said. He turned to Marcel. Marcel, do you remember me? Marcel nodded. Yes, I should have intervened that night. You should have. But you didn't. Because you were scared too. Antonio walked around the restaurant. How many young people work in this restaurant? How many of them wanted to be chefs? No one answered. That's why I'm here. To tell them. Don't give up on your dreams. Antonio went to a young waiter named Julian. How old are you? 20, sir. Do you want to be a chef? Julian looked at Robert, then at Antonio. Yes. But what? Monsieur Delacroix says this business is difficult. Antonio smiled. Difficult, but not impossible. Look at me. 15 years ago, I was a waiter here. Now I'm a world-famous chef. Robert tried to intervene. Antonio, please. Quiet, Robert. You've been quiet for 15 years. Now it's my turn. Antonio turned to Julian. If you really want to be a chef, I can offer you an opportunity. What? An internship at my restaurant in London. 6 months. Real culinary training. Julian's eyes lit up. Really? Really, but with one condition. What is it? Never belittle anyone's dreams. Never tell anyone you can't do it. Robert couldn't take it. Antonio, okay, we get it. You succeeded. Bravo. But don't make a scene in my restaurant. Antonio calmly looked at Robert. Your restaurant? This restaurant is currently on the brink of bankruptcy. I know because I researched it. Robert's face went pale. And I know that if a Michelin chef doesn't eat here tonight, you'll close next month. Antonio pulled out a check from his pocket. This check gives you enough money to stay open for 6 more months. Robert was shocked. What? But in return, every young person working in this restaurant will receive culinary training, under my sponsorship. Why? Why are you doing this? Because, Robert, real power isn't taking revenge. Real power is giving others opportunities. Antonio placed the check on the table. This check isn't free. I have conditions. What are they? No young person in this restaurant will be humiliated. Everyone's dreams will be supported. And you, Marcel, he turned to Marcel, won't just cook anymore. You'll train young chefs. Marcel nodded. Agreed. Antonio sat at his table. Now I want my meal. Robert rushed to the kitchen. That night, he prepared the best meal of his life, because not only his restaurant, but his pride needed to survive. The meal arrived. Antonio tasted it carefully. He ate silently. Everyone held their breath. How was the meal, Chef Antonio? Robert asked. Antonio finished his plate. Good, but not yet star level.
That's why I'm making you another offer, Robert. What is it? I'll be the consulting chef for this restaurant. For 6 months, I'll come twice a week to train your kitchen. Robert couldn't believe it. But why? Because this restaurant taught me a lesson 15 years ago. Now I'll teach it a lesson. 6 months later, Le Petit Jardin had changed. Under Antonio's guidance, the menu was renewed, presentation improved, and service quality increased. Julien and 2 other young people had interned in London, and when they returned, the restaurant's atmosphere had completely changed. Robert had changed too. No longer arrogant, he was now a humble restaurant owner. He supported young people and listened to their ideas. In 2024, Michelin inspectors visited Le Petit Jardin. Antonio wasn't there that night, but his influence was everywhere. A month later, the Michelin guide was announced. Le Petit Jardin had earned its first star. Robert called Antonio. He was crying. Antonio, thank you. Robert, this is just the beginning. Real success is this restaurant continuing to give opportunities to young people. After the star ceremony, Antonio visited Le Petit Jardin again. This time not as a customer, but as a mentor. Julien had become sous chef. Other young people had taken important roles in the kitchen. Chef Antonio, Julien said, I don't know how to thank you. Don't thank me. Thank yourself. I just opened the door. You did the rest. That evening, after the restaurant closed, Robert and Antonio were alone. Antonio, I owe you an apology. Robert, the past is in the past. No, what I did 15 years ago was wrong. You were a young man with dreams. I tried to destroy them. Antonio nodded. Robert, if you hadn't fired me that night, I never would have become such a great chef. How? Because pain made me stronger. Rejection gave me determination. Your saying you can't made me say, I will, Robert thought.
So even evil can turn into good?
Yes, but that doesn't justify your evil. It means I learned to be strong.
What happens now?
Now this restaurant becomes a place that gives hope to young people. You're my teacher now too, Robert. Teach young people how to be supported. A year later, Le Petit Jardin held a young chef's night. Julien and other young people served the dishes they'd prepared. Antonio was there, but in the background. The stage belonged to the young people. Robert took the stage. Tonight, I'm proud of every young chef here. We've taught them not just how to cook, but how to follow their dreams. Antonio smiled. He'd completely taken his revenge. But this revenge hadn't destroyed anyone. It had improved everyone. As Antonio drove home that night, he thought about himself 15 years ago. Young, fragile, dreamy waiter. That waiter was gone now, but his dreams had come true. His phone buzzed. A message from Julien. Chef, I'm going to the bank tomorrow to open my own restaurant. Thank you for giving me courage. Antonio smiled. The chain continued. Dreams multiplied with every young person given courage. Because real revenge wasn't proving yourself. Real revenge was helping others prove themselves too. So I ask you now, have you ever met someone who belittled your dreams? How did you turn that moment into power? Share with us in the comments. At Iron Will Stories, we honor strong characters who turn rejection into success. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, please share it, subscribe, and help us continue celebrating those who refuse to let others define their limits. And remember, sometimes your biggest obstacle becomes your greatest source of motivation.